Okay, good morning, everyone. I give the stage to Petri.
Kiitoksia. Hello. Where should I be standing? There is the camera there, but I don't need to be visible. That's okay to speak it here. I have now 15 minutes. How was it?
Use the time that you need, and then someone will be coming to push you off stage.
Something to think about, but that's good. Okay.
Use the arrows too.
Cool, thanks. Hello everybody. So sorry, a bit late. My name is Petri Rauhakallio. Been here at the company since 2014, so quite some years. And happy to tell a bit about what kind of company this is or where this comes from. And in brief, I'm going to do that. So it was 2013 when I'm old friends with Tero, who is the founder of the company, and he had ideas on how to do automation, how to analyze LiDAR automatically for power line networks. That was kind of the starting point. And then the company was established. Quite soon, there was 4 of us sitting in one room in Eteläranta in Helsinki Center, and there the store journey really started. Here is kind of timeline, some major events. It is not at all everything what has happened in the company. It reflects a lot what we have done in the customer projects towards customers. Some main points. There has been also many other stories around behind, but this tells a bit of my perspective what's happened in the company. So that's about it. Kind of like one thing how to frame is that early from the beginning, what we thought, what we designed was to really solve customer problems. It was not about the GIS or was not about the LiDAR itself, that is the main subject, but how to use that to deliver value to customers. That was kind of our driving factor there, and very much in the 2014 when we started more about to do this sales work here in Finland. We approached tens of utilities. We talked with them to understand what they need so that we could then deliver turnkey inspection service solution results to the customers. That was really on our focus. I will actually show something about that and come back to the timeline a bit later on as well. This sentence actually came from a customer who participated. Actually, this company route comes from research project together with a couple of Finnish utilities, power line companies, and ST-Pooli, which is kind of research and association for power line companies to develop the industry. Project was called akka, how to automate, how to analyze automatically LiDAR more efficiently. And this sentence comes from a utility who had already collected tens of thousands of kilometers LiDAR data. When he has the data, what the heck to do with that? Then it was only tools available, visualize, perhaps with 3D glasses, Googles to visually assess and make observations and create something so that they can use it for maintenance planning and purposes. So he said he gets headache and then that comes then to this algorithmical development of this research project, how to make it more fluent. And one important partner there was Geodetic Institute here in Finland, part of Land Survey, National Land Survey, who was research partner there, providing background algorithms, their research studies for the purposes of this project. That piece of code then started turning this into something tangible, something what you can really deliver. Not anymore visually, subjectively to assess, is this tree what I need to cut when I'm walking there in the forest? Or here, also I can ask the same question, that red spot, are these the trees what to cut? But then to quantify, to be able to analyze the power line, its surroundings, so that you can really put these issues into categories, measure how close, for example, undergrowing trees are growing from the power line, to detect these problems or quality issues in the previous clearances, or if there is branches close by wires, or if there is this kind of individual trees number 5 marked, then that these can, in the storms, for example, cause typical problems. And these categories then essentially go into processes, maintenance processes, work processes, cycles of maintenance at the utility. And that's the key. Then they know what they have. They can even start prioritizing it. I mean, it is basic GIS thing. Have a lot of data, visualize, do filtering, start creating statistics for areas, for different aspects, and then to truly prioritize the work. So this is how where it gets and starts bringing the value for the customer for the purposes of their maintenance planning and optimization. And here is a couple of examples from early years with our first customer, PGS, how to assess risks with growth model included, meaning that you can see there the segments spans, I mean from pole to pole, you can call it span in the power lines. The risk is growing, and then this gives visualization, risk assessment, and forward-looking planning for the maintenance for the network. So this tells kind of the starting point where we here in Finland started and put together solution 2014, PGS, Pohjois-Karjalan Sähkö, Joensuu area, eastern area of Finland, for them to provide services where we had piece of code. We acquired helicopter operations from a subcontractor which happened to be a stock listed company. And we specified what we need and the deliverables for vegetation management, and at the same time tool when collecting images to be able to inspect the components, the poles and power line equipment. So that was the solution what we created, and it is very much defining the path where we are still right now, it is exactly the same paradigm what we do actually currently now, for example, in a couple of big projects in the US. They're in the latter part of recent years of this timeline. There are PG&E mentioned, which is one of our customers, big Californian utility, and the work continues with them. So it took many years to refine and of course as well enter to the market, I mean from Finland to the US, to be able to then have the connections, create the relationships, trust with the customers, so that they can believe, hey, some guys from Finland can really deliver something feasible to them. Of course, over now years, we have built strong team in the US to be able to operate and locally serve the customers. So it's long evolution of different activities. So here in timeline, we started from these basic inspections, and we have ended up now there, or where we are right now. For the future, for sure, there is different things coming, and Jussi, how to use the data, how to utilize the data even more efficiently what we collect. That kind of aspects we are developing and talking towards. Jussi Glenn will tell about that more. So that's kind of in big picture. So that this kind of startup wasn't too easy. There has been roller coaster valleys and uphills and all and every aspects of for this kind of company it can bring along. We also had period where we didn't do this kind of inspection service by using helicopters. I will tell a bit of story about automated detailed inspections, which is drone-based inspections. But then eventually in the timeline, it became clear the value is really on the bread and butter, and to be able to efficiently do the whole thing from data collection, analysis to the results. So it is this kind of creative, agile thinking, what needs to be accomplished and assessed all the time when developing these kind of services to the markets, what you do not know all the way as starting point. And in any case, the market is evolving. How much time I have?
You want more?
I will be starting to conclude. So a couple of minutes, perhaps I show something from here. Also one aspect what we've, let's see if this works. Yeah. Have developed what I mentioned about this automated detailed inspection is that how to make drones to fly automatically and in that way automate power line inspections. This is one space we were studying heavily. Perhaps time was a bit of too early, and of course drones are developing, sensor technologies are developing very fast, and then all that will bring along the value for this kind of automated inspections eventually. So these things we have tried and for sure monitoring as well continuously to understand where market for these kind of detailed inspections will be evolving. Oh, no, I managed to stop the slides. What I want to say, we have been a bit of all and everywhere. That left picture comes from China. We were demonstrating China State Grid, our services as well. Biggest power company in the world. Over 1 million employees. So what to say? Shit. I mean the quantities, volumes are huge. But again, how to enter the Chinese market? Impossible from Finland as such. And market is, of course, in this world situation, not the easiest one. There on the right, picture of one customer pilot project in Austria. And have to mention there in the middle, this gentleman. He happens to be Mr. Regal, who is the founder of the company Regal. You have heard about that. There is one Regal sensor on the table. He happened to be friends of our partners there in Austria, so he came to see what we are doing. It was quite a funny day with such gentlemen to talk and what we are doing, how we are using LiDAR, LiDAR technology. Video of I'm not going to show that of
60 minutes. 60 minutes.
About that, but to conclude, where the value comes from is where there is need, and in California there has been big needs for wildfire prevention, and through listening to customers we learn what to do. For example, in one meeting, the left picture comes from 2018 when I was sitting there with PG&E, our customer there. They were telling what they need, what is their methodology, what is their philosophy for vegetation management. And then we started developing, matching our service towards that. And along with that, built these heliscopes for the purposes of that project 2019. And then it was 26,000 miles to inspect in California or other places. I think that's my story.
Yes. Thank you.
Welcome. Any questions?
There will be time for maybe some. Are you going to stay on?
I'll be here, so
Okay.
we can talk.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Petri. And feel free to grab Petri as well for any discussions later. Now you deserve a cookie. Oh, shit. All right. Shall we close our lights? Yeah. Okay. Hi everybody. Nice to see a lot of new faces here as well in the office. Very much welcome from my part as well. My name is Jussi Saini. I'm the Director of Products. So coming from the product management at ProGIS. Joined 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago in our hardware team back then, and then at the turn of the year, then jumped over to the product management side. So seeing quite a lot also in this short few years, but obviously like just saw the nice history like timeline from Petri, what all there has been in the past. So I'm going to talk about what all there is today that we are doing to solve all the issues that we see in the world, all the wildfires in California, keeping up the infrastructure in shape, and there is like an aging workforce problem, that there are not enough like qualified electrical workers to first inspect the poles, and there is a very acute need with the people who also fix those poles. So finding where it matters is super important. And how do we do that? What do we use today? So what does ProGIS do? In a slide, we do infrastructure, resource, and workflow management these days. We are still in a couple of regions of the world perceived as a drone company, for thanks to our background. but the software as a service business is where we concentrate. So this is what many of our customers see. So this is the core software platform where we pull all the data in. So you have the map view of all the GIS assets on the map coming from some database and then fine-tuned by us. We have all our flight data in there. We push all our 100 megapixel imagery in there as deep zoom images. Everything is streamable from anywhere in the world. And we also have the point clouds and the 3D models that are derived from those point clouds and image detections available in single platform. And of course, all the vegetation issues and asset issues are available there as well for then pushing these prioritizing them and pushing them out to the field workers who will then actually go fix the problems or collect more information from the field if that's not yet happening. But in addition to the software as a service side, we are doing a lot of data capture ourselves still today. And we also do a lot of analysis services as inform of customer projects. So this means that we fly a heck of a lot with these, the helicopters, and we have our own hardware sensor system there in the front. And as Petri mentioned, this is like one of the earlier units of LiDAR scanners that make that height work. So this is that produces all those 3D point clouds. There's a rotating mirror and shoots lasers out of it and rates how much time they spend in the air. Bit of an expensive kit, but it's pretty nice.
On every kid's wish list for Christmas.
Yes. So again, what does Sharper Shape do? A lot. We do a lot for this size of a company, and up to now we have captured like 64,000 kilometers of linear network miles, or that are streamable as digital twins on core platform today, or 40,000 in freedom units. Now I tried to package like in one slide what all we do without making it too high level or too detailed, and without spilling too many beans, what actually goes into our projects. So there is like four points when we talk about this thing. So I mentioned the Sharper Shape core, which is the visible part to our customers, especially use the Sharper Shape core platform today. There are all these issues, all the models, all the imagery, ortho mosaics that are available there, and of course a lot of exports that are provided to and integrations that we provide to external systems like ArcGIS or the other household names. But this is all the part that is not really that much visible to our customers, but as you can see, it takes quite a lot of our time and effort actually to make all that happen. So as mentioned, starting from the instrumentation, we do our own sensors, but we also utilize everything else that is available out there. It's like these drones. It doesn't make much sense to build your own drones these days. We have been doing that in the past, but it's these days not something that we want to really concentrate on. So off-the-shelf stuff and working with the partners. But there, already for the instrumentation, obviously there's a lot of things that you need to care quite accurately, which is starting from sensor calibration, so knowing which particular angle this device is shooting at, where it's antennas and all that. Working with the customer data and doing the even basic line survey for ground control points. So figuring out whether your accuracy is good when using this device. Then we have our team on the processing, GIS processing side, data ingestion, all the processing that makes that raw data that comes out of these actionable, so that we have, instead of like raw angles and measurements and some GPS data sitting in there on the hard disk, so that it's available in cloud as a 3D point cloud that is perfectly georeferenced. That is all that happens here. Images, hyperspectral images, all that goes there. And there's teams for this in the company. And once we have this nice georeferenced raw data still processed in the cloud, then our algorithm guys and our production takes over and create these 3D models, all the value added stuff as a workflow, adding trees, we're classifying the tree species with our own technology, classifying LiDAR, whether this point is a tree or whether it's a building or a road or ground, and doing all that and doing that also automatically. And then when we have the classification, then going even the next step to create the 3D models of wires and poles automatically from those point clouds. That's something we do as well. Okay, so opening it a bit up in pictures, what all this means. Of course, it's really easy to take pictures of hardware, so I've done that. So this is a bit closer picture of the helicopter nose mount, and yes, we are flying there with the helicopters these days, capturing the data. When we are developing these stuff, well, occasionally you find yourself in a wind tunnel. This is in Otaniemi, still exists. It's a very old wind tunnel actually, but pretty weird place to be actually. But we tested this pod there for high wind speeds, because of course safety is paramount for anything that deals with manned or unmanned aviation. So you need to be sure that it can withstand the speeds, air speeds that occur in real life. And then there is, this is kind of the business end of what is inside that white and yellow pod. So there is these 300 megapixel cameras and one 150 megapixel camera. There's the real large, and on either side there are hyperspectral cameras, which kind of capture this kind of one line, but on really many spectral bands. And this is all designed here at Sharp ProShape and built here at Sharp ProShape in Finland as well. Of course, the sensors are off-the-shelf stuff, but the integration is ours. Then this is how it looks in the air from the sensor operator's seat. So we have the computer display to show all the different camera views, LiDAR capable, hyperspectral preview, and most importantly, we have our own helipilot software, which is connected to core and tells you where you should be flying. So where are all the assets and where what have you already captured? So this purple line here is kind of it is showing the trajectory where the helicopter has been flying. You can see that it's a bit of a roller coaster because the helicopter can't turn on the spot. The helicopter can't hover on the spot, so it needs to actually fly like this. And it's quite fun and games in the cockpit. And the issues, no, we don't have any issues. So occasionally there has been a blue screen in the mid-air, which is always fun. But since lately we have been replacing those with Linux, so we don't have any more of this. But we actually have installed Windows mid-air during operations, which was crazy in the worst case. But that only happened once. We are still flying also drones and are active in that space, but all our business currently really relies on not on these blue screens, but the helicopter operation. And there is a lot of sensor research we do as well for integration. So working with like high-speed thermal cameras. In some cases, hyperspectral and RGB and LiDAR is not enough, but we want to know also the condition of components while we fly over them, and need to use fairly weird bit of kit. So this thermal camera there is actually cryogenically cooled down to like minus 200 centigrade. I mean, it needs helium to do that, and you need to replenish the helium every 2 years in order to make the camera work. So all sorts of things that I never had heard of. And then, of course, also doing some groundwork. This is on top of our hardware lab, installing a better antenna there for ground control and test purposes. And our head of instrumentation is celebrating that with hand push-ups. All right, then there's the bit of opening the data ingestion. I tried to figure out like what could be a good measure of that. Well, looking at what we have today compared to like what we had in May, we jumped from 5.6 petabytes of data to 6.1 petabytes of data. So adding half a petabyte in 4 months data in our operation. So there is a lot of stuff I don't even want to think about what is in miles of CD stacked on top of each other or something like that. But many libraries of Congress. Then we have, of course, the algorithms and production guys. Occasionally, of course, we have everything automated, right? But this might occasionally happen. So there is, of course, awful lot of manual work, of course, as well. When there's stuff that doesn't happen automatically with the models perfectly with the AI, then you need to do some weird tricks manually. Look at this guy's expression. But it makes the company very lively, and that is very cool. And with all the workforce that we have, we are pulling off fairly neat technology, I think, on the processing side. So I was trying to figure out some examples that we have been doing what I find really cool in the company. And this is one of those. So you see a fairly large suburb that we have captured in California, and we have stitched together all the LiDAR, all the imagery to color the LiDAR, which is kind of standard stuff, but then it gets pretty cool. We have classified it automatically with machine learning models, or all machine learning models, and based on those classified LiDARs, we have fitted all the wires and the poles also automatically in this. So there's no manual work involved in this picture. You can see there's an occasional space elevator there as well. So there is some funny business going on and some manual QA, meaning this going after this. But the bulk, we are handling that. It's a really nice place to be. We weren't there like 3 years ago, but we are here now, which is awesome. And the scale of things is fairly large. So there is somebody joining. Okay. And of course, a fair bit of this also goes to patenting things, making sure that we protect our IP as well in this field. So I think we have currently been granted like 20 plus patents and patents, and there is like I think double that as applications out there. And of course, then coming back to the infrastructure resource and workflow management software as a service, the picture I showed you already. So all that previously mentioned stuff kind of ends here and starts again from here in forms of risk analysis, assessments, and figuring out where the electrical networks have the issues, what are the specific trees. So zooming into that view that you saw and figuring out, okay, these trees with these tree canopies are a problem. They are about to fall on the power line if there's too much wind in the game, and there are branching issues. So some wires are already touching the some branches are already touching the wires, which is of course a huge issue, and this has to be reported immediately if we are talking about California, because of the fires that even kill people. This is figuring out those in time that it doesn't happen, so we save lives in the end. That's pretty much it, how we do things today. And then any questions at this point?
Thank you.
Then I give stage to, okay, there we go.
Yeah, I have one question. I'm just wondering what kind of competition you have in different operation areas. Is there competitors is the competitor with an integrated solution as you do, or are they just separate?
That's a very good question. So quite a lot of the market is very fragmented in the sense that there are many players that do one thing. So they do actually really good sensors, which we can of course use, or there are contenders who do only software but none of the data capture. So the competition is out there. It's pretty varied, but we are one of the rare companies who are actually vertically integrated, who do this all as a kind of turnkey solution and service to the customers. But yeah, I think in Europe the market was much more competitive. Generally in Europe, also the infrastructure is in generally better shape. So the needs are also different. But in other parts of the world, like US, there is very lot of like aging infrastructure and a lot of issues, and of course climate change and climate crisis is adding all to that. So then, and they have the money. So that is where currently our focus is concentrating. And there we face a little bit less competition on those areas than in Europe, funnily enough. Yeah.
If you turn that upside down and think about prospect who may take part of that process from another vendor, so how do you see your solution at the moment compared against something that maybe the owner operator picks up themselves? So somebody collects the data, somebody processes it, and then it's managed in their own system or by the system.
Yeah, there is a bit to unpack from that, but what I can say is that we are definitely open to those as well. So we are aiming for being completely data agnostic or data source agnostic company. So if there are companies who want to fly their own drones, use their own drone teams, we're actually doing that with large customers today. So we are not actually the ones collecting the data, but we just take it and help their teams to figure out where they need to fly and also collect the data into the platform. So that's one way of working. And then it's kind of mix and match. We can like provide also the just the raw results if the customers want to do processing themselves or integrate their some other system the results.
One question: you are not. I understood that you are not selling the sensor. You are using it for your own purposes only.
Yes, that is true. Not at the moment. Yeah. But I'm so saying not that's not a given that it's be the case in the future. Currently we are. All right. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ola.
Thank you. As our last speaker, let's welcome Glenn.
Morning, everybody. My name is Glenn Colvin. I'm Vice President of Products, and I took this position in beginning of January. I'm based out of the U.S. because all our customer base right now is there. Though we are talking to people in, I think, 5 different continents right now. So we do have the potential to have a global base. Before I get started, I do want to address the comments of those questions. We do not view ourselves long-term as doing everything. As Petri talked about, we got started with drones. We're no longer developing drones. We're no longer doing a lot of drone captures. There's a lot of drone service providers, and we're trying to have our software linked that helps them be productive. And our end customer really is the investor-led utilities in the United States right now. So we are working on opening up our system. So as UC said, we could be drone agnostics. We do have internal discussions about how long we want to stay in the data capture business, because if you're in a service business, investors have one multiplier for your valuation. If you're a software company, they have a very much higher multiplier. And so I'll get into a little of that, because what Mika asked me to focus on is sort of where we might be heading. And what I wanted to talk about is, I don't know how many people are familiar with the concept of digital twins. My background is actually robotics before I worked here. And the CEO brought me in because working with robotics, especially exoskeletons, where you're putting a person in a robot, is a very complicated system where you're integrating mechanical, electronic, software, controls technologies. And in many ways, Sharper Shape is integrating a lot of very different technologies to address the utility problems. And as somebody that's in the Western United States, I've actually got pictures from my front yard of brush fires that, are 7 miles from my house. It's happened 4 times in the last 10 years. So this is, sort of very personal to me. Also, since I've started Sharper Shape, I'm amazed when I turn on the lights that the U.S. utility system's providing electricity to my house, because we do have an aging infrastructure problem. And what we're really trying to do is help the U.S. utilities assess that problem, prioritize their risk, and prioritize where they should be putting their money, because the U.S. is behind in terms of maintaining its electrical system. Additionally, there needs to be a big upgrade in the electrical system as the economy is converting to electrical system technologies. For instance, there's a study for New York City that if every car was converted to an electric vehicle, they'd need over twice the power in order just to charge the cars. There's like 3 major transmission corridors. They'd need 3 additional ones. They don't have 3 additional ones. So, everybody buying a Tesla in New York City would just crash the whole New York grid, and that would then propagate through New England. And so there's a lot of problems, and with that comes a lot of opportunities. And so why we do cover sort of everything, I would say what we look at our data capture efforts of doing is by doing it ourselves, we really learn the hard way what the problems are. And so then when we come up with our software products to integrate those technologies, we can really help the utilities. A lot of American utilities have, we talk to, they'll say, we did a drone capture project. We have millions of photos in SharePoint directories. We don't know how to look at them. They don't, they collect the data. They don't know how to look at it. They say we have LiDAR files. We don't really know how to visualize it. And they don't have the manpower to do what we do, to do what the people here do in terms of the GIS technologies to do the data conflations of the poles. So what we're really trying to do is give them the tools to help them really understand what their system is, where their problems are, where their risks are, so that they can direct their capital dollars to the right place. And so that's sort of in a big picture. And one of the ways we're really trying to do that, because the other problem that's hitting a lot of economic sectors, I think in the Western world, is there's demographic problems with the workforce. In the U.S., there's not enough qualified electrical workers to do all the inspections for the whole utility, because in the U.S. there's 7 million miles of transmission and distribution lines. In the EU, there's 6 million miles. And if you think of people in trucks driving around looking at every pole, every cable, that's a lot of manpower, and it's just not available. Additionally, in many sectors of the U.S. and I suspect in Europe, but I'm not familiar with the EU to that level. I don't want to confirm that statement. The younger generations are not going into the service type jobs in terms of, people don't grow up and say, I want to go fix telephone poles, to put it simply. And so the workforce is aging. And so the utilities really are looking for automation technologies that can help them with inspection, that then can help them prioritize repairs. And so what we are looking at in terms conceptually where to go is there's a concept called digital twins. And I don't know, you hear it a lot. And coming out of robotics, in aerospace, in my background, I'm really familiar with, how the CAD models evolved, the simulation models evolved. They created the manufacturing models, and you really created a digital twin of the physical systems. The electric utilities don't have that data history. And so what we're looking at is when we're doing our surveying and our LiDAR, we're actually helping them generate 3D physical models of their system that they can then say, okay, now we have a digital representation of our grid. And what a digital twin allows you to do is if you have that digital representation, you can then do inspections. If you think about a qualified electrical worker that's 49 or 50 years old and has been in the field for 30 years, he's still younger than I am. His body is breaking down. It's hard for him to go out 8-10 hours a day in the snow, in the rain, climb telephone poles and do inspections. But if he can sit down at a desk and look at high resolution photographs, he can inspect those poles just as effectively, and he can do it actually faster because as soon as one's done, he doesn't have to drive to the next one. He just hits a click. So we're trying to leverage the workforce to help them. And that's where a digital twin helps with inspection and maintenance. And then vegetation management, what's not known is we're actually involved with the legal cases of some of the wildfires that have been hundreds of thousands of acres in California that have killed up to 100 people. Our data captures, we know where the sources are. We've worked with the utility. But if you look at it, you say, yeah, there was a tree that fell into the wire. But if you look outside the utility right away, you see just an incredible forest filled with dead trees. That's an instant fuel source. And so we're actually working with utilities not only to say, okay, yes, technically a tree falling into your line was the source, the spark that started the fire, but there's a lot of environmental activities that happen that didn't mitigate the spread of the fire. So, it's like a tinderbox, just do the match and it's going to be 10,000 acres before you can even get the fire crews there. And so there's a lot of problems the utilities are facing. And what you see, and I don't know if Petri mentioned, because I didn't hear all of Petri's, is when we do an inspection of tens of thousands of miles, we'll come up and we'll say, okay, you have 70 or 90,000 places where you might have a tree contacting your wire. And the utilities look at us and say, we have 100 vegetation crews. What do we do? And so that's where we're looking at the risk management in terms of actually with the digital twin going through and saying, okay, which trees are within a foot or, half a meter, which ones are within a meter, which ones are within 4 meters. And that allows people to prioritize. And so those are issues that we're trying to help. And so that's a traditional digital twin where you have sort of the physical representation and you start to use it in your operations. And I've mentioned how we're trying to automate, and what we're also looking at is we're talking to different organizations about, as we have this digital twin, how do you simulate? And there's a lot of software out there that does a mechanical simulation. If you know the weather, you can figure out how much the wire is swaying. If the temperature is increasing, decreasing, how much does the sag change? Do the poles lean? By creating this digital twin, we provide the utility a way to start to synthesize other data sets that they have. One of the interesting things that's actually evolving too, because of the wildfire problem with climate change, is there's a lot of simulation in the academic world that's starting to come into the marketplace where people have said, okay, if you have a fire start, how's it going to spread? And so this last one where we start to look at emergency modeling is, again, that helps us. If we start to partner with them on the simulations, we can start to say, okay, these ignition sources in these areas would cause much more property damage. And so prioritize that. This area, yeah, you're going to burn a lot of forest, but you don't have a lot of population there. You don't have an evacuation problem. And so when you get to a digital twin, you can start to do scenario planning simulations that that provides a lot of benefit in a lot of industries, and that's why a lot of different sectors across the economies are moving to digital twins. Where we're talking in the last year about changing the wording to what we call a living digital twin. And when we talk about living digital twin, we want to add the fourth dimension of time. And that's where the people here on the GIS information are very critical, because start to think is, okay, you go fly your network. The first time we do it, we do a conflation analysis and we say, yeah, your data for all your poles is off by 30 meters. We can now get it down to centimeter accuracy. So we can conflate all that data. We've done studies for one customer where they didn't know how many lights they had on telephone poles. They're called electrolyrs. So once we had the data, we did an algorithm and we went through and we counted them up and identified it. And they could now start going and billing those people that had those street lights. So these are some of the initial problems of like, okay, now we know where everything is. And this is the difference between, I'd say, fundamentally the US and the EU markets. Is the EU has a better understanding of what they're at, where their assets are, what they are. And so they're sort of a step ahead of the US and wanting to do the inspections and say, how do we maintain that? The US was playing catch up to get to that level. But if you think about, okay, you get the digital twin in place, now you go and say 3 years later, you want to say, okay, how has the vegetation changed? What's changed? You fly it again and you want to compare things. And you start to look at the fourth dimension of detecting the change in the grid. And again, you can do that automatically, but you need a ground truth in that. And that's where, GIS is very important to everything we're doing in Sharper Shape, because what Sharper Shape does in the marketplace is we really get into absolute accuracies versus a lot of relative accuracies, which a lot of our competition and inspections are doing. And so we're trying to get the digital twin very accurate. You do another flight, make sure that's very accurate. Now you can overlay them with high, and you can start to do changes. If you don't do that, run to run, you start to get multiple data sets and you say, how do I compare them? And it starts to get manual, because you have, and the people in this room probably understand the consequences of that far better than I do. So we're looking at a digital twin to start really thinking about the time-based factor. The other thing that's happening in the marketplace is everybody knows about IoT devices. You got doorbells, you got Alexa that you can talk to in your house. In the utility sector, there's a lot of devices you can start to put on your grid that are IoT devices that are connected to the internet, that are feeding you data. As we get a digital twin, we start to collect that information. You actually start with the digital twin to start to get a real-time sense of what's the state of your network, what's a problem, if a storm's coming. US, it's hurricane season. Puerto Rico, the whole grid went down 100% last weekend for the hurricane. And the last time it happened 5 years ago, 80% of it was out for 3 months. That probably wouldn't be tolerated in the EU. Some other areas of the South can weather a storm better because they've put some systems like this in place. This is where Sharper Shape is headed. And as we do this, again, to the questions that were directed at UC, we are looking at figuring out ways to open up the system that we can bring in different data streams. We do not want to say we have a system that you can only use with our data capture, with our IoT devices. We're too small for that. I mean, there's a large ecosystem here. There's a lot of players. And what we're really looking at is really trying to work with the utilities to figure out a network and help them with their risk management. And when we talk to some of the really large investor utilities, a lot of our competitors are looking at pieces of the problem and just want to hand the data back to the utility and say, okay, you figure out what to do with it. We're helping the utility figure out those data sources and try to how to synthesize it. And this is sort of our concept for what we're trying to do with that. And then this is just more detail. This is out of a presentation we gave at a drone conference to talk to people. A lot of this is what UC talked about, where we want to get to agnostic data collection. We've talked about drones that we've done, telescopes we've done. We're working with companies that are doing aerial inspections with aircraft about collaborations. We're talking to satellite companies. We've written an iOS app for the line crews that go out in a truck and may do a manual inspection. So with iOS app, they can take pictures. mark it up. Here's the problem we found in this pole. It comes back into our core database, and we have those records from a ground inspection. And then sensor networks or IoT. So these are the things we're looking at. We want to figure out ways to ingest the data. Again, when you look at demographics, when you look at cost, with the quantity of data, we have to figure out ways to automate it. And that's why we're investing heavily in AI. And again, we're trying with our AI teams. We do a certain amount of labeling and work internally, but we're also looking at a lot of the developments that are, proliferating throughout the economic world as ways to capitalize and synthesize it. But, and then once we get that together, we can start analyzing it and forecasting it. And what's most important to the utilities is the bottom line. They really don't care about the first three, how you do it. They want to get to the point where you get the actionable reporting as to how you have a problem, how do we have an action. So are building a lot of workflow capabilities into our package. So if you do the automated inspection, you have a problem identified, we want to hook into the utility system and say, okay, here's a work order to go to it. And it's not a work order just to a veg crew to go trim some trees or a utility crew to go fix a pole. We also are building in a capability with iOS apps that when they're in the field, immediately they take a picture. You can do the quality control right away. And that helps the utility know that because a lot of the vegetation management is contracted out to third parties. So the utilities are like, okay, how do we know they actually cut the trees when they said they did? They want verification of that. So by having us give them an app, they can give it to that crew. They have to take pictures, and then people can very quickly verify that work's been done versus getting in a truck, going out there, and it saves them a lot of time and increases their productivity. Additionally, there's actionable problems when a pole's bad or been damaged. And we have a channel where people, when they're going through our surveys, they put in things and they say, what in the world is this? And you look at it and you say, it takes us a while to figure it out. There's some really weird things that happen to the point where people are hanging a cable and they've tacked it into a tree instead of a telephone pole. And, and so that sort of defeats the purpose of vegetation management. But when we do that, some of that requires engineering before they can go fix it. And so we're trying to work into the engineering aspects of it. And this is some of our challenges, because you can imagine a monopoly utility that has tens of thousands of employees. They aren't exactly interested in the latest technology. They have silos, they're little fiefdoms. And we actually sometimes get a better perspective of what's going on in the utility because we've talked to the different people and they haven't been talking themselves. And one of the things we're doing is working with program management offices at the utilities to figure out how they can break down those silos just to make themselves more productive. And with this digital twin and the information it generates, that's helping them do these types of activities. And then these are just a bunch of pictures that, again, reinforce it, how there's the data forecasting, remote inspections sort of going around, actionable reporting. And these are pictures that are all out of our systems. And, UC described quite a few of those. So I think I've talked about a lot of this, but this is where, we actually can get in there with the pictures and the digital models, and we can really zoom in quite closely. We can actually get physical measurements. A lot of times the utilities are using the digital twin and they're actually going in, their engineering crews and our teams are going in and actually doing measurements. And they're starting to use core, and the data in core is a check on their asset systems. And this is where we're talking to the utility to say, why are you taking our data and then manually moving poles in another system? Why don't you take that activity and move it into core? And we're slowly getting traction on that. And over the next 2 years, we'll probably have quite a few utilities actually start to move a lot of their condensed, get rid of 4 or 5 software packages and start just to use core, because it does integrate a lot of different data for themselves. And then UC had put this figure up, veg management. Again, this is a way where you can actually point exactly where in the grid you have a problem. And, this is, again, what we're headed to. And so the slides themselves, I think, just elaborate on some of what I've been talking about. But so that's just a quick overview of where we're headed with the concept of digital twins and trying to make it living and actually look at that's why we talk about 4 dimensions. You know, we want to get time. It's just not all about space. So,
Thank
any
you very much,
questions?
Glenn. Yeah, good.
So, and I'll be here for the rest of the morning. So I'm happy to talk to anybody about what's going on. As I said, I started in January, so I can't get into the level of technical details that somebody like you see, but I'll give it my best. And if I can't get an answer, I'll try to get it for you. So, okay.
Thank you. Do we have any questions now? Do we have any questions online or comments? Now is your moment. We still have several people online. I can hear crickets, but anyone want to say a word? Now is your opportunity. As a bonus for the people who have shown up, I think you will have a small opportunity to maybe see a little bit how Core is used. We have production crew here who can give you a short glimpse of what the tool looks like. So, but unfortunately, we cannot show that online for you. I propose that if there are no questions coming from online, we end the show or the meeting. So I thank you who are our guests who are online. I will close this presentation and we will continue here at the office with the people if they want to have follow-up questions from Petri, Glenn, Jussi, and enjoy another cup of coffee. So, thank you all for showing up. And
Thank you. Bye-bye.
thank you. Bye-bye.